Nabala Musa, Moro de Nebi. Nabala Musa, Moro de Nebi. Nabala Musa, Moro de Nebi. Gasiwa, Muna Figura Matuma. Yamawa, Yamawa. So colora la coma guarantara dona taragoma tapuro tiage ngapa manize negi one titla Nabala Musa Moro de Nebi Nabala Musa Moro de Nebi Nabala Musa Moro de Nebi Nabala Musa Moro de Nebi
Jai, and welcome to the Gated Gates podcast. It's good to be back with you guys today. It's been a long time since I've seen you guys last time. I think 7 days. It's never enough time. I'm just kidding. But before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge all the forces in the non-material, particularly all the ancestors that are standing behind this great work, and all the powers of nature and all the forces of nature. And also Neb Nabala Musa Moradinabig, the great spirit that paved the way for all of us to be in this work and to open up the doors of the traditions and the Kemetic temples back to the modern world. And and all of your ancestors and all of our ancestors for bringing us all together, and through the good and the bad, and the struggles and the challenges. It's good for all of us to to be on this road and to be crossing paths. And with that being said, my name is Tutipsa Maaheqwur Amir. I am the main host of Gate of Gates here with my other main host,
Kajijim inside Kebtah. Glad to be here.
And with our guest host,
Teryshaat Maaheqwur.
See the way Teryshaat turned on the light. She's like, Teryshaat Maaheqwur. So we say when the lights come on or when the curtains come up in the entertainment world or the acting world, we say you do one or two things. You either take a step forward or you take a step back. Teryshaat takes a step forward.
That's where we want to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's true though. It's so much better if you take a step forward as opposed to taking a step back. There's been a lot of interesting things going on in the world, man, and there's a lot of things happening. But recently there was a storm. We're on the East Coast, and there was a storm or like a prospective storm that was supposed to happen. And what they did was, because New York City is one of the only cities in America, I think aside from Chicago and I don't know what other cities really, that are just accepting migrants, they shut down one of the high schools. So they stopped the high school, like their normal day, and then we're using the high school in order to house the migrants.
Wow.
And I was really thinking about it because some of the pages on like Instagram and some of the pages on just different places were talking about the migrants, these people, and they were saying like, oh, this is what your tax dollars are going toward. Oh, this is what they're doing, this and that, and look at how these migrants are getting free health care, and they're getting this, and they're getting free housing, and they're getting taken care of like this, and then like look at you. Like, look at what's going on in your life. This is what your politicians are using for your tax dollars and all that stuff. And it's interesting because they had like they were interviewing like different people. Like they'll like pull over like the random like white lady that's like dropping her kids off at work, and she'll be like in her car, and then she'll be like, yeah, no offense to those migrants, but like, I don't think they should be here, and blah blah blah, yada yada yada. And I was really,
You shouldn't be here either.
I was sitting back and I was thinking about the way people are really looking at and treating these like so-called migrants. And I was saying to myself, I'm like, the interesting thing is like, people are totally dehumanizing these people.
Mm-hmm.
And they're dehumanizing them in a way where it's like they make it seem like as if they don't exist outside of like what the media presents to you, outside of what the news presents to you about these people. And I was sitting here thinking to myself, and I'm like, it's crazy because this person that you're just looking at on the news, that they're showing this footage of being kind of like shepherded into a room where they're just going to be sleeping on the floor with a bunch of other people, has a history, has family, has a whole life, has a whole history, has a whole possible career back where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they're abandoning all of that to come here to the promised land to chase the American dream.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think?
Man, it's funny that you even brought this topic because today somebody had actually said it to me. They were like, look, man, hey, you see all these Spanish people? You see all these Mexicans? I'm like, yeah. He's like, bro, this is why we like our people. And he pulled me to the side. He was like, it's why our people. That's why we're not getting the jobs.
Oh, he said this?
Yeah, he said that, and I was like, but bro, we're here. We're here.
You're like, we're working right now,
We're working
bro.
right now.
We're at work.
We're at work. But he was like, but nah. He was like, cause my girl, she Indian, and she put me on. She told me, she was like, look, she put me aside. She's like, this is why y'all not getting the jobs, because they're giving it to all the migrant people, like all the people coming in, all these Spanish people, they're giving it to them. And I'm like, bro, I think a lot of these jobs is jobs that most people here don't even want to do.
Yeah, no one else would do it.
Yeah, nobody else would even really do it. He was like, nah. I'm like, but I don't think any of the Spanish people in here are migrants. But it's just the idea of it is already kind of like a festering like disease in people's minds. And it's funny because when you really think about the situation, like America, as you said, is like the promised land. Mm-hmm. Like this is the land that's giving you like the milk and the honey. So mm-hmm. people really like risk their lives to come here. And everybody is a migrant when you really think about it. There's 99% of American population is immigrants. Mm-hmm. I don't care how long you've been here. You can't really say you're a true native. You can't. Like, I don't care how long you've been here. So it's a weird kind of situation where I think the problem is people are so entitled in being here, feeling like because they're from the promised land, they kind of like are on a like in a bubble where they don't really see the issues of the world. So everything around them is like centered around America, but everything outside of that is like so foreign to the point where they don't think of it as it being like real. Like these migrant people are now like a kind of like a what's the word hindrance in their minds, because it's like, well, they're here intruding on my reality. I don't want to know about that other reality
My
out there.
opportunities.
Yeah, these are my opportunities. I don't care about whatever shithole. Our jobs. Yeah, I don't care about whatever shithole they're coming from. But the sad reality is, like, maybe their shitholes is probably that way because of this. I think that's what most people don't think about. Like, maybe America's the reason why it's that
serious? Is that serious? Is it
like,
are you being facetious or?
I'm just saying, like, it's like people don't think about that. Like, are you that far up your own ass where you're so privileged in your mind you can't see that maybe your privilege is the reason why other people are missing out on certain things? And now when you have that privilege, because that's how you want the world to see you living in this first world country, you don't think other people are going to want to do that because, you know, their situation is not so great? Because for this to thrive, other people have to suffer, and that's just the reality.
But then the funny thing about that is that this thriving and the way it's thriving is what those other people are even flocking towards. Even if they know, like, whatever their situation is like kind of caused by whatever's going on here, they're flocking towards this at the end of the day. And I think you use that word, like, that everyone's living in their own bubble, and I think that honestly applies to not just people here in the promised land, but even outside, because everyone views this place as the promised land. How did that really happen, and why is that still happening, right? But then when you come here, and then people aren't looking at themselves as privileged. Of course, they're not going to look at elsewhere in the world and see how America's playing into that, because they don't see their lives as privileged. They see the struggle of their day-to-day life, and everyone's just kind of living in their own little bubble of their own struggle, right? No one's really thinking about how they relate to the other person. And I think this situation is not new. It's been happening like throughout the history of the world, but in today's day and age, I think what's interesting is that given the way that the world is really connecting, it's interesting to see how people are still actually moving further apart, and actually the ability to relate to each other is actually getting further diminished. And you can see that in the way everyone's, the reactions and everything's happening to today's migrant crisis, at least. Because it's true.
People don't want a reminder of their BS, because to some degree we all know that we're part of the problem. So our BS is the reason why those people are in their BS.
I don't think we do.
I don't think people really think about the trade-off, because that's the thing is like I remember one time I was one of my real good friends, the childhood friend of mine, he was talking about I think like terrorism or something like that with his mom. He's a white dude, and he was talking to his mom, and he's like one of those white kids that grew up being like, fuck you, mom. Like, so he's like, that kind of,
he's the real
like,
terrorist.
Yeah, he's like the real white, the real white, you know what I mean? And I guess he was talking to his mom or something like that, and he was saying like, it's such a shame some of the things that like we do as America to the rest of the world. And she was like, no, it's not. And she was like, and think about it. She was like, eventually they might get the opportunity to do it to us. So we have to keep doing what we're doing. Otherwise, they're going to be able to do it to us.
Yeah. I mean, that's honest.
I mean, that's honest. Yeah.
But it's just a messed up
mentality. Yeah, but I mean, if you're being real, then you're like, yeah.
That's the subtext under everything.
I mean, of course, that's why people are like, well, I feel bad for you, but go back to Mexico.
Yeah.
I feel bad for you, but just take your ass back to Honduras.
But you know what's interesting is like a lot of those communities that do immigrate or migrate here, especially if we're talking about people coming from a different type of culture, you see like those communities or those people stick together.
It's tight-knit.
And I think it's because at the end of the day, individualism is the base of this society here. That's why you're looking at every single person as your competition. Whereas maybe those people are coming from places where you don't function like that with each other. So then when you come here, it's almost like a shock to the system, you know, because that's not part of the marketing. So then your survival actually ends up being based on how well you're able to use that, I guess, that principle of communalism from where you're coming from and transplant it here. Because it's not necessarily guaranteed that the culture here is what's going to allow you to move forward if it's already pitting you against every single, you know, player already in the field.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've noticed here with a lot of people from here, they have that competitiveness towards like immigrants or people who are coming in from like other places. But like you said, I've noticed that with immigrants, because I lived in Jersey City, and it's really just Indian people. So like I used to come out.
I didn't realize how much Indian people, how much
New
Jersey City
Jersey's,
was.
I mean, New Jersey in general, there's a lot.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. But
I mean,
Jersey
You guys,
City,
is there something like you guys like when you're in India? You guys are like New Jersey.
yeah, Jersey. That's
Oh, there's a-
Like, is there something?
That's where we go.
Like, is there something like that? Like, keep it real.
No, I think it has to do with the industries that are in New Jersey or based around New Jersey. There's a lot of like pharmaceutical like industry, and there's a lot of like tech things happening around the area.
What about Northern California?
Yeah, there too. I just know about New Jersey. I know a lot of people come here because of like the opportunities that are here. I mean, again, I immigrated here with my family, and we came here because of my dad's job.
You're an immigrant?
I'm an immigrant.
Oh no.
I'm an Indian immigrant in New Jersey. What a surprise.
I know, right?
But yeah, I mean, I think part of it is also just that there is such a huge community here. So it's not as hard to kind of establish yourself when you come here. But I do really think it's just because of whatever's bringing people here, the opportunities. A lot of it, at least for Indian people, it has to do with like jobs or...
But that's the thing, though.
Yeah.
Even with that word, opportunity, is a huge word, because that's really what people who are from here are really saying. They're stealing my opportunity. But then it also becomes almost like a jealousy thing, because I've noticed within living in the Indian community, everything is so tight-knit to the culture and the society that they're coming from that they don't even have a jewelry store that's not based in Indian jewelry. Like, all the jewelry was Indian style. Like, I didn't see no regular chains that I would consider like jewelry. It was all Indian style. The food, everything was Indian. The tech companies were all Indian. What else? The real estate company was all Indian. Like, everything was tight-knit. So you almost have that sense of community where you kind of create your own opportunities here. But then people here feel like opportunities are being taken away from them, which is just not true. But it's just like that individualism again, like you said. It's like we're so individual here, we see it as like a self-to-self thing. We don't see it as a community thing. And maybe if we did, we wouldn't really be looking at these immigrants the same way we're looking at them, as competition.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about that, which I've been thinking about a lot lately, is that in India, for example, like that's the kind of culture that's there too, right? But what ends up happening when you come here is that people are actually like scared of losing their culture or losing what they had back home. So when they come here, they almost fight harder to keep it and make sure, okay, like, you know, our kids are gonna go to like, you know, keep the language, or like, at least my experience was like that. And a lot of people in my neighborhood, the experience was like that, where our parents sent us to make sure, like, you know, whether it was the cultural, like traditional music, whether it was the language, whether it was like knowing about our, you know, like traditional stories and spirituality, things like that. They fought hard, like from the moment we got here, to make sure we didn't forget that.
Oh, I know. You guys had festivals like every month. I was out there like every week. I'm like, it was always something.
Because for them, it was like, okay, we're not coming here to lose our culture. We're coming here to gain something, but we're not willing to sacrifice. That is what everyone starts out like, right?
There's no trade. It's not a trade-off.
Exactly.
It's
I
just
mean,
strictly beneficial.
that's the ideal. You know, whether how it happens happens, that's a different story. But
Yeah.
the interesting part is that now in India, everyone, including the youth, are rushing to be more like American, you know, and more like the West. And there's not that like urgency to keep something or maintain something that the immigrants have here. So it's like this interesting interplay where you don't even need to be a migrant necessarily to be buying into, you know, the marketing scheme of, you know, the West. But almost like coming here, something about the fact that the way things are set up here, almost like so individualistic, so competitive, that it kind of triggers that, you know, survival instinct that you need to like stick together and keep what you have. That almost ends up being like you know, an aspect of preserving something than even being back home. It's interesting. I've been thinking a lot about how that's been playing out.
That makes sense. Now that you say that, I've realized a lot, even for myself now, of like, because in Brooklyn, right? Like Brooklyn, where I'm from, is like where I grew up, I should say. It's called Little Caribbean. Little Caribbean. Now, when you say that, it makes more sense as to why. Because if I go to Jamaica, they're gonna wanna kind of like listen to the American music and like kind of like try to like, you know, imitate everything up here. But then if I go to Little Caribbean, it's like, yo, we gotta like, you know, keep a certain kind of like standard. We gotta like be this kind of way. Like even though we're going to like those schools, when we're around each other, we have to talk like that. We have to, you know, still have our music. We still have to have our food, our culture, like no matter where we go. So it makes sense. I think it's like really a sense of when you come here, you start to kind of realize you really do miss home. Because coming here doesn't really provide you the same kind of stability that you think it does. Maybe financial opportunities, yes. Maybe you gain financial gains, but even that is also a trick. Because coming here, then you also kind of like get trapped here as well, which is the other side of things people don't really look at.
Exactly.
It's like you can come here with a mentality of like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna come in and get what I need to get the money, get the fame, whatever, and then go back and build and establish. But then you end up being trapped here, because that's why they market it to other people outside. And I think that's where people here are misunderstanding, because here is just a marketplace. But there's people who genuinely think of it as home, forgetting that they actually came from somewhere. You're still an immigrant. The same thing that your ancestors did is just what these people are doing. So why is it that you're trying to stop these people from doing what you did? Because that's all it is. Like people are just coming here to benefit. And then even in coming here to benefit, they got trapped. And I think people here subconsciously are upset that they got caught in the trap. So they don't even necessarily know where they're coming from per se, but to see somebody else come from somewhere else, claiming to want to establish or gain opportunities, then the competition is not just competition anymore. Now it's a reminder of like, oh shit, where am I coming from? You get what I'm saying?
I don't know if I would say they're subconsciously upset they got caught in the trap. I don't know if I'd say that, because a lot of people who've been here for generations, I don't think they're aware or perceiving any kind of trap, because they're almost like so melded into it. They're part of the, you know, the machine, that I don't think they're looking at it as a trap. I don't think they actually look at migrants or immigrants as having anything that they don't have. And that's the thing, which is like, whether you look at it like that or not, at the end of the day, I think the problem more is like the whole kind of like divide and conquer mentality, where like your first instinct to look at someone like foreign than you is to be scared. There's fear.
You know, I was thinking about I saw something on Instagram the other day, and they were talking about, it was like a girl. She was like, I'm living my grandmother's life in reverse as an Italian immigrant. And she was moving back to Italy, and she was living in her hometown, or like the village where she was coming from in Italy. And she was like, I'm living my grandmother's life in reverse.
Interesting, right?
And I was thinking to myself, and I'm like, it depends on kind of like how hip or wise you are to the game, depending upon how much you're really thinking about how dire your situation is, in order to really go back to your so-called homeland, or your wherever your home is, whatever home is to you. It's about going back there so that you can then be literally back in the kind of lifestyle that your grandparents lived. Whereas that back in the day, it was like, how do I remove myself from this provincial life
Exactly.
so that I can now put myself in a position to have a better life, to have a better life for my descendants. But now it seems like whatever they sold or traded to get that so-called better life, a lot of us are thinking to ourselves, I think we need to go back. I think we need to go get it back. Like whatever we traded, I think I need to go get whatever grandma, whatever grandpa, whatever dad traded so that I can now, you know, kind of like live more aligned with the way maybe, you know, things are supposed to go for myself. And I don't know if everyone is kind of conscious to that kind of process, because it seems like a lot of people are kind of lost in the sauce, and it seems like people are really just kind of living as kind of like their whole personality becomes like political ideals. Like, you know how like your personality can be based on like an astrological sign? Like people will be like, oh, sorry, I'm just a
oh, you're an Aries? Oh,
yeah,
I can't,
you're an Aries.
I can't deal with you. I can't talk to you. No.
You're a Libra? Oh, God, I can't deal with you.
Oh, you're Gemini? Oh, you two-faced it. No.
But then like their whole life becomes centered around that, where it's like even like they'll be like, oh yeah, you know, like, oh yeah, that's why I had to leave the party, or that's why I was driving on the wrong side of the road. And then you're like, no, you're just a psychopath. Like it doesn't have anything to do with your astrological sign. Like you're just an asshole. Now, where do you guys think that kind of comes to play in the abandonment of your culture, where you are willing to trade everything? Because there's people that come here as migrants. They're doctors. They're dentists. They're, you know, lawyers. They're, you name it. They're relatively high scale or upper echelon jobs or status that they have within their so-called, you know, home countries. And they come here, and then America's like, no, you can't be a lawyer. No, you can't be a doctor here.
Really?
You can't be a dentist here. Yeah,
That's the thing?
They don't recognize.
Really? Yeah.
They don't recognize the status there.
That's the majority of the case.
Like the status that you have there, they don't recognize it here.
See,
You'd
I
have to
didn't know that.
Like if you're
start
a
over.
dentist in like let's say Uganda, and you could be like the world's greatest dentist in Uganda. You come to America, they're like, "You good, bro?
Really? Can
Really, Nasheed? Yeah."
And now he's smiling at it.
I
too.
know. He's like, yeah, that was me. They don't recognize you as a doctor here or a dentist here. They'll be
didn't
like,
know
nah,
that.
go back
You'd
to
have
school.
to start over completely.
You gotta start over.
And that thing gets like normally you have to spend like 14 years to get any like to even just start your profession.
And people do that.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if people do that, but definitely it's not like if you come here, it's not automatic. It doesn't transfer over.
No,
Because
wow.
already those, like, you're already looked at as, oh, like, you're coming from Uganda, coming from, you know, this third world country. So your certification is not going to match up to the quality that's needed in the U.S.
See, that's the trick, though. That right there is a trick because already they're already putting a marketing scheme right there. It's like if this is the highest standard that you can have, then of course everybody's going to want to go for that. If you're the type of person who's going to spend like 10, 14 years chasing like a degree or some kind of status, of course you're going to go for the highest status. So it's a good marketing ploy. And it even goes back to what we were talking about with this is just built on immigration. They do that purposely because they want the best of the best of the best from everywhere that they can get.
But
to
they
come
only
here
want
and
the
build
best
this.
of the best if you're willing to completely submit yourself to their regulations and to their accolades, their degrees, their recognizing bodies.
People are gonna
Otherwise
do
than
it.
that, they're like, no.
But
you
people are
can't.
going to do
No,
it
but
because it's
that's why
these standards.
that's why they try to get people from even the level of like college, like even like the before I was even in the picture, like my dad got a full scholarship to study.
So before you were in the picture, before you were
before
born?
I was born,
Yeah. He said before I
he
was in
was
the
even
picture,
married.
like, yeah.
Like he
you
was.
act like
he
you
was
walked
like,
into your dad's life. You came out of your dad's ball sack.
All right, thanks. Thanks
Yeah,
for
you're
the
welcome.
clarification.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So he was like at the top of his like throughout his whole like educational career, right? So he got a full scholarship
And
to
then
do
there's
his.
you.
What? What is that supposed to? Excuse me.
He's like the failure.
He's like,
Excuse me.
I
was doing
yeah, his firstborn daughter, Teryshaat.
Excuse me. Anyway,
Sorry, keep going.
no, he got a full scholarship to study his master's degree here in the U.S. Right, and that I think that's like a common theme. They handpick a lot lot from
Same
like
thing with my dad. Yeah, same
exactly.
thing. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. And then there's me. And then there's me. My dad's looking at me like pathetic. Everything I sacrificed,
exactly.
and this is what you're doing. This is who you are.
So
Shout out to my dad. Yeah, shout
Shout
out
out
to
to-
Mr. Satish.
yeah. But yeah, that's the thing. They handpick you before you even like go into the workforce necessarily. They already like kind of handpick these people from these places because that's where like the talent is. That's where the intelligence is to come here and already insert yourself to kind of like the educational system and you know the degrees of how qualified you are to fit into this society, so that it's almost like a pipeline they're creating already. There's a clear demand here, but then all of that is masked, and then the public sentiment is always like this, like there's this endless supply, and that we don't want, you know, we don't need you, we don't want you, and that these people are just coming and like taking and, you know, almost imposing themselves onto something when that whole system is even built and inviting all this, you know, intermixing and all this talent from the rest of the world, because that's actually been the basis of this country and this land. You know, that's been the history. That's what even drives it forward.
Exactly. So that's why the whole migrant thing, or people coming at the migrants, it doesn't really make sense when you really but again, there's a difference between people who understand like the history of the country, because you can know the history of the country and not understand it. You can know the history of something and still not understand it. So people who understand it understand that the driving force of this is, like Teryshaat said, it's immigration.
Well, I mean, wasn't that like America's like motto was like, give me your tired, give me your poor, give me your sick. And then now they're like, give me the best of the best. Don't give me any of those. Don't give me the sick.
Look,
Don't
Mary-
give me. That's the IG. That's the IG.
I know.
Look, Mary Carter said her dad is going to Asia right now to recruit kids to go to college in America.
Yeah, I mean, they don't want Americans. They want people from other countries, because the Americans, like what they're doing to the Americans, like the way that they poison you with the food, the way that they poison you with the media, the way that they poison you with the conditioning, the way that they poison you with so many different things. Like by the
So-
time you get to college, you're just an overgrown human-sized.
So here's the conundrum in that.
Like, you're just a
so
donkey.
when people come here and they start eating the food, though, don't you think that starts to wear
mean,
and tear on them?
obviously,
So that's why they
yes.
have to keep on going up and re-up.
That's why.
It's like, this is
But-
getting worn out.
You know
Re-up.
what's interesting though, because
What?
it kind of goes together, right? Because that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is that they've literally marketed this place that now everywhere where like there's a certain type of work ethic or a certain type of culture, people are using that and those principles, but now gearing it towards this
here.
place as the goal. Because they want that. They're like this whole system, the economy, everything, right? It's benefiting from that. Right? What's not here and what those people have in other places of the world, it's benefiting from that. So they've engineered this, you know, this system basically to make sure that everyone's using that, everything they naturally have, but gearing it towards making it here and making this as the goal and this as the prize.
Instead of there where they come from.
And maybe what they already have.
And then those same people even will come here and then look at where they came from and be like, oh, that shithole, I made it out. I'll never go back.
Exactly. I mean,
It's true.
that's true. That's what it
and
is.
That's exactly the way people look at it.
Yeah, it's
It's
sad.
like I was having a conversation with this guy. He said that he wasn't. I hate using this term, so I don't even want to call them that. Like, at what point did we start degrading and dehumanizing other human beings to call them illegal aliens or call them aliens? Like, that's a human being. Like, at what point, where do you get off calling somebody else illegal or calling them an alien?
You illegal.
Like, your whole basis of your damn country is illegal to begin with. You murdered everyone and decapitated everyone and poisoned everyone to be able to be sitting here to call yourself a country. And then you pawned off the homicide and the murder and the mass genocide, and you called it manifest destiny. Get out of here. So I hate using this term. And I was talking to this guy, and he was telling me how he doesn't have papers. And he was like, I have a family back home. And I think he was from Nicaragua. I can't remember where he said he was from. But he was like, I'm going to go back. And he was like, where Top's Diner is? In Newark. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I love Top's Diner. And he was like, yeah. He's like, I work there. And I was like, oh, do you? He's like, yeah. He's like, I work in the sandwich area. He's like, do you ever order any of the sandwiches? I was like, on the contrary, that's like the only thing I order when I go to Top's Diner for the most part are the sandwiches. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I probably made the sandwich. He's like, cause I work there all the time. He was like, but yeah, like my stuff is kind of expiring and I have to go back. And he was like, and my wife is there and my family is there. And I was like, what are you thinking? I was like, do you think it's a good decision to go back, or do you think it's not a good decision to go back? And he was like, honestly, he was like, I don't really have an option. He's like, I have to go back. And I could kind of sense it in him that he was feeling like
He didn't want to.
that maybe like he was kind of unsure or kind of like uncertain. And I said, bro, let me tell you something. I said, honestly, I was like, go back home, go back to your family, live your life, do the things you need to do. I was like, you're not missing what you think you're missing here. I was like, this place is not what they're telling you it is, and it's not what it's cracked up to be.
It's a trap.
I was like, go back home, bro. Go back home, go back to your family, go back to your kids, go back to your wife. I was like, and do what you can back there. I was like, but you're not missing what you think you're missing here. I was like, and they're lying. It's all a lie. And he was like, it's interesting because at the end of the conversation, he basically was like, I really appreciate like the kind of the advice or the guidance you gave. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, the way that America has every other country by the balls, thinking like America is like El Dorado, or thinking that America is like the promised land, that you can just come here and then it just like automatically, like whatever you think of will manifest, whatever you're looking for will manifest. Money grows on trees, the roads are paved with gold, you name it. The way that they have everybody believing that is so perplexing to me, because by the time people come here and then really start to learn what it is here, because the amount of Indian people I talk to in Jersey City that are like, it's terrible. They're like, it's not what it's cracked.
Really?
It's all because you're right here.
Wow.
You gotta keep a straight face. But they're like, it's not what it's cracked up to be.
Well, continue. Stop.
Got the hit.
Yeah.
I was on a roll.
Finish what
But once I've lost it, I've lost it. But just the way they have everybody, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I don't get it. I really don't get it. But it's because I think we're in it, and because we're in it, we're trying to run away from it because we know the pitfalls and the BS that comes with it. But it's sad though. It's really sad the way they have everyone.
But it's still kind of like interesting because I mean I know at least for me, right, the grandparents, the parents that made that choice, and then if you make it good here, then it's almost like then now if like we're realizing and we're trying to do something different, then it's almost like why are you trying to throw away everything that we sacrificed for, everything that we literally like left everything we knew, you know, to come and like set all of this up for you. Why are you trying to wash your hands of that?
Exactly.
Why are you trying to literally like we set you up so good? Why are you trying to, you know, are you trying to say that everything we did, everything we believed in, you know, doesn't matter? And it's like,
well, no, that's the thing. I understand how a lot of people would feel that way, but the truth is, when people come here, like we said, right, they start to realize they have a sense of missing or longing for home, where they really, really try to still stick to who they are, because they realize you can really lose yourself here. Very much so. So it's like you're not betraying anything or anything that they've done or established by trying to do what you want to do by going back. You're just trying to rebuild.
But in the eyes of those people, that's not true. Sam.
not everyone, a
That's
lot of
not
people
true
don't look at it
all.
that way.
People don't look at it that way. The way people look at it is like, I sacrificed my life. I crawled through the mud. I crawled through a river. I crawled through the cold. I crawled through the heat.
Some people literally.
I climbed a fence. I swam to get here.
Some people literally.
And then this
You
is
left your family, you left everything you know.
this is. I'm laughing because of the way when Eddie Mesty dropped the toy. The way he was like. But the way they look at it is like, no, like I think it took like, personally speaking, I think it took my dad a very long time to come to terms with the fact I wasn't going to be a doctor and that I wasn't going to be a lawyer or I wasn't going to be a scientist. I think it took him a very long time, and he was very honest and open and transparent about that. Because he was like, all of you guys should be lawyers, all of you guys should be doctors, all of you guys should be this, all of you guys should be that. And then the way my dad looked at me when I was like, Dad, I'm moving to New York City because I want to be an actor. The way my dad looked at me was like, huh? Like, what did you say? Because in his mind, it's like, I just basically, in so many words, said like, everything you did, that's cool, but I'm gonna do something different. Like you got us as far as you could, but like, I'll take it from here. Like that's what an immigrant parent hears in their mind. It's not like I'm gonna do what makes me happy. I'm gonna follow my dreams. It's you don't know anything. I know everything, and I'll take it from here. Sit back.
Exactly. And especially when you come from a culture that's all about family, then it's like, then it's even worse.
It's even worse.
Because then it's literally, because the way, at least, like, you know, my parents talked to me about this.
It's kind of just tagged Oprah in our Instagram.
What?
Keep going.
No, like in our cultures, like, you know, even a few generations ago, it's like your parents, even like, you know, what they kind of set for your life, you know, whether it's like finding your, you know, like your spouse, you know, setting kind of certain decisions up for your life. Like you don't question those things. You just kind of follow because your parents had that, you know, position. You respect that. You go with it. And then it's like, even all of this, you know, the family's not functioning, or it didn't start out functioning like an individualistic thing, right? So everyone's supposed to be on the same page, and then it's just viewed when you're coming from that kind of culture, and then everything that you're supposed to do as a child is to be like a continuation of what your parents did and take it, you know, a few steps further. But that's where the conflict comes in now, because a lot of, like, the person you're talking about who's living her Italian grandmother's life in reverse.
Yeah.
Right. And then in our experience, it's an interesting situation, because it's almost like it's not necessarily that we're not going in the line that our parents set up for us. It's almost like we're taking a U-turn to go back to a line that's actually at the basis of anything that we are and our families even about, that our parents are even about. But because of the marketing scheme, because of, you know, the promised land and all the things that have happened the last few generations, it's almost like the line that the whole world is on right now is going in one direction that's opposite of everything we're really coming from. So now being the people to kind of make that U-turn puts you at odds with, you know, your families or like your immigrant families that have come here, right, to give you a better life or to give you something, because now the line they're on, right, and that better life is on the terms of something that's not really set by what our people are really about or what our culture is really about. That's what the real conflict is coming from. It's really like a arm wrestling situation between two different types of cultures, two different types of ways of living life. And then it's now playing out between families. It's playing out between, you know, new immigrants and people who have been here for a long time. It's playing out between, you know, in between countries. It's playing out on the global scale. It's playing out in the houses. It's playing out everywhere. And the real question is, do we really let that tear everyone apart, or is there a way to kind of be diplomatic about it? Is there a way to really be standing on something and actually use that to now bring people together, you know? Or is it really, are we in that time where it's going to take that fight and it's going to take, you know, breaking some eggs to finally make some omelets, you know, further down the line? You know, these are the kind of questions.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's difficult, because I think some people maybe are looking down the line or down the road, and then there's a lot of people that aren't. Because I was thinking about Hunter Biden, right? And I was thinking about like the way his life is going. And I was saying to myself, I wonder if he's just paying the price
For his father?
for everything his father has done.
I mean, well.
We don't know.
Well.
We don't know. We're not doing a reading. I know your priest Kaj a reading, but we don't have the.
You don't need to do a reading to see that, though.
Yeah, but the thing is like, is he thinking about that?
Probably not.
Would he know that? Probably
not. I mean, would any of us do any of the things we really do if we were thinking about that? Like, would somebody really get up and leave their place of, you know, culture, their residency, to try to come here to live a quote-unquote better life if we were thinking about that? Like, for real, for real?
No, I mean, if you're really thinking about the unbroken, or the way that, you know, things get passed down, or the sins of the father spiritually, like, hell no. You're not, no. But we're not. That's the problem, is we're not thinking about that, and we're not doing that. And then that's the issue at hand, is because we lack a real understanding or a real piercing of the mysteries of the way things work, you know, spiritually. So then why the hell would we think like that?
I was asking that because I really was thinking about it. I'm like, the way America really markets this place to people, it's like Teryshaat said, it's like a fight between cultures. It's like really a fight between paradigms. It's like there's a reality here where the only reason why you truly come here is because you want your material life to get better.
Right.
That's it. You just want a better material life. But then your spiritual reality suffers so much from doing that. But then that's like the question that nobody like asks.
Yeah,
it's
bro,
like, what's the effect of
how
that?
can you expect someone to ask? You don't know what you don't know.
But there's people who come from places where they do know.
Where?
No, but this is
Hold on, but where? Where?
So you don't think people from South America know? You don't think people from Africa know?
You can't talk about a whole
I think it
continent like
depends.
that.
I think it depends. I think everybody has different things that they really have.
Because
Bro,
this is the
you
thing.
see the way. Get ready for a clip. You see the way these so-called indigenous from South America function, bro? You know, you got me. You got me now. You got me at the right time. The right now. You see the way these so-called indigenous.
They're not all like that.
Hold on. You see the way these so-called indigenous from South America function, bro? Out here, bro, they're just pimping their culture. They come through.
Pimping.
It's the money.
But they come through with
about
the
the
drugs. They're like, I'm the plug. Like, what you trying to get high with? You trying to get high with the peyote? You trying to get high with the ayahuasca? You trying to get high? What you need? What you want? When do you need it? And then they're just willing to pimp out their so-called culture, give you some drugs, sing with you, you know, let you feel the experience of getting high for the night, hallucinating for the night, and then they're like, all right, Claire, good luck. All right, Thomas, good luck. And then they just send the white people on their way, and then the white people are out here thinking that they're being spiritual, bro. And the thing that I'm asking you is that if they truly have an understanding of the non-material, if they truly have an understanding of spirituality, why you keep drinking? If they truly have an understanding of all of those things, then why are they willing to pimp out their culture like that?
I didn't know you was gonna talk about them like that.
Oh yeah. I'm ready. I'm ready. I told you tonight. I'm feeling it.
I don't have a defense for them, so I don't have a response to that.
No, but that's the thing. Like, you can't idealize even what the reality is like on the ground in these places, because the loss of culture is happening all over the world. Most of the world has been colonized at this point. And the reality is that even I can just a majority. That's the thing. And then I can talk from my experience, right? Because that's what I know. But having traveled like for years and years, like I've been going back and forth from India, right? And this time especially, because it's been like 6 years, I think, since like last year I went back, and it been 6 years. In 6 years, like the difference was crazy, just in the city that I was born in, right? And to the point where even what you're talking about in Jersey City, right? Where all the stores, the clothing stores, the jewelry stores, the restaurant, everything's Indian, you know, everything's a business, right? When I went to the city and I went to the mall that was closest, like I was shook. Because that mall is like even more American than like any of the malls you see in Jersey. All the same brands, even like more like higher class brands and everything, just at a regular ass mall. There.
So if that's
all the same, and you could never like all the Indian brands or the stores, like you don't really see. There's a few in there, but not really that much. And everyone's just flocking to like those name brands and everything. The whole city had been transformed. And the reality is that what's happening on the ground in a lot of these places is that, first of all, the way everything's being set up already is that the opportunities are in the cities. So then the youth are forced to kind of move to the cities from their villages where maybe the culture is being better maintained. They migrate to the cities and look for jobs there, right? That's kind of like the microcosm of maybe what's happening within the country, if we're talking about migration, right? So they're moving to the city. The city has just become like a bastion of Western culture. And then people are establishing their families there. People are, you know, now raising their kids there. And then what's really there is just like the culture of the West. And though any indigenous culture, anything that people had, that's not being perpetuated there anymore. And then now if you're talking about the villages, the people, the elders who are actually the kind of like safekeepers of those things, they're dying out. The language is dying. The youth are kind of being, you know, educated by different values. And then that like continuance of, you know, the spirituality of the traditions of the culture, that's not real. There's been a huge break in that. That's been happening for years, even in all these places you're talking about. So that's the thing. So, we can't idealize, like whether it's religion, whether it's education, we can't idealize it.
You know what's interesting about what you just said? Going back to something you said previously. It's like here, when you come here from those places, you tend to realize that you're kind of missing something from back home, so you hold on to it. Now you see the people who are here holding on to it, now you're saying more than the people there.
Yes.
Right? So it's being lost there, but somehow being incorporated here. It's almost like here is now, even though it's like here's the main attraction for the world, it's like the center of it has been pulling in so much. It has to have like a resistance to the point where everything that's now being maintained here. So here, in a way, people coming from here who have been from there, who are now going back there, are going to be the ones to even try to help kind of like bring those things back. It's almost like a weird reverse thing.
Yes.
Where it's like, okay, we're going to mess things up there, but in a way it's messing up what we got here. So then whatever's here that's been messed up is going to go back there and try to fix it there. And then people from there are still going to come here and try to mess it up more here. You see, it's like this weird kind of dualistic thing going on. It's like a weird dance.
But the mystery, or like the kind of like the risk in everyone's situation, is that here, maybe you start out that way when you first come here. Maybe you're really trying to save your culture. Maybe you're really trying to stick to that. But let's say you make it here. Let's say you spend some time. Let's say, you know, life is getting good. Then maybe you start to kind of inch away because now the comforts and everything that this society really has starts to kind of seduce you and starts to pull you away from that in ways that you don't even realize. Like it would happen so slow you wouldn't even realize it. So I don't think it's kind of like it's set, you know. I think it's really in how every person or every family, you know, every community really decides to approach it. But it's a really interesting situation, you know, because I have cousins, I have people, family in India who are like around my age group, 20s, 30s. They don't speak our language anymore. My sister and I speak it fluently, and we grew up here.
And they live there.
And they live there. They grew up there.
Wow.
Like, how do you explain that, right? But now if my sister and I don't value that and we're just like, oh, you know, whatever, and then we don't keep using it, we're going to lose it too. And then what's going to happen from there?
Man.
There's always a risk.
Well, as they say, what's that quote or what's that saying? It's like, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's like, when you peer into the darkness peers back. And there's no way you can give up your culture or trade your culture and think that you're not going to lose something. So the name of the game, ladies and gentlemen, is be careful what you trade, because certain things you can't get back. And on that note, let's get to some of the questions. Ujjayi to everybody. I see a lot of people in the chat, so Ujjayi to everybody on the chat. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of those things. Turn on, you know, notifications so that you can know when we go live and all of those things. And with that being said, let's
We should walk around with a sign that says "Immigration built America."
It's true. Immigration did build America.
Hashtag that.
Huh?
Hashtag immigration built
Yeah.
America.
Especially now. Okay, so going into some of these questions, does it make sense to for Matthew Ruta, Ujjayi, Matthew Ruta, hope you're doing well. Appreciate you for tuning in and hope you continue to tune in, Matthew Ruta. We know you're a very dedicated Gator Gates viewer. Does it make sense to prolong your fast after the 10 days if you keep breaking it by accident? How are you breaking it?
By accident.
Yeah, how are you breaking it by accident? Like that sounds kind of sus.
He's like, I didn't mean to eat the cheeseburger.
I didn't mean to eat the cheeseburger. It just fell in
so
my mouth. I didn't mean to drink the water. It just I was in the shower and I was like,
My mouth was caught in it.
like I don't know what you mean there, Playboy. But yeah. We're going to move on to the next question. Matthew Ruta is saying, kind of random, but how did the concept of the traveling initiatic schools work way back when? Are there any differences? Excuse me. Are there any differences as to how they operated then and how they operate now? I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get the question. Can you clarify the question for us?
I think he's talking about the when the Kemetic temples would send out initiates across many different lands to kind of like, you know, spread, I guess, the initiatic word or to spread like the knowledge. So, I mean, if I can answer his question a little bit, I guess all I would say is that back then it was a little different because now we have a lot of ideologies like with religions where people would go to a place and if you're, let's say, Christian and the other person is Muslim, you guys wouldn't mesh, even though you're worshiping the same God, but then your ideologies are different. But back then, if I go to a land, let's say I'm coming from Maritime, I go to like Europe, I might be saying Wisser, but they might be saying Thor or All-Father or whatever. But then the concept of the divinity or the God is the same. So then how I travel, how I speak to you will still relate because you understand the concept. It's not really, we're not debating about the name or the God per se. It's like the concepts. So people are still able to kind of like communicate better because it was more so about the cultural context. Like it was all about principles. It wasn't really like ideologies. I hope that makes sense. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think from what I know about it, I think, you know, we're not reinventing the wheel in terms of what Kebtah is doing. This mission is, you know, as old as humanity. So the concept of people traveling to sort of, you know, bring certain values and principles and educate, and then having that exchange, is something that's very, very old. And people would travel to, you know, the temples to learn. People from the temples would travel to different temples, because at the end of the day, when the Kemetic culture was really the authority in the world, there was a whole network, a global network that was happening. And even places that were, you know, geographically very far, you know, under different types of rulership and all of that, there was a certain like communication that was happening, and a certain like harmony and synchronicity, because everyone was really under the same culture or same sort of principle. So then that exchange was something that went to now, I guess really, because there's a diversity to life everywhere. So that exchange would really come to now keep everyone rising and building, and that sense of communalism was really at the basis of it. So I think that's really at the principle of, you know, what Kebtah is really about now as well, because it's just, you know, following that model and continuing and evolving, you know, into the time we're in now.
Next question is, like, if none of us are on our native land, like, is there a goal to learn the indigenous ways and go back? Can we all just go back to Medita?
Interesting.
I'll let you take that one. No, I'm always answering. I answer questions every week, so I'll let you answer that, or Kajas or Raymond.
I want to hear what Teryshaat has to say.
How convenient.
Yeah, how convenient.
Yeah, convenient. Oh no, I want to hear what you have to say. Please go. I'm always answering questions, so I'm like, you know, might as well give you a chance. I know you're more than well equipped to answer them.
So
Yeah, I'm just reading the question.
let me just say this. Again, it goes back to principles. Like, indigenous people functioned off of principles. So the natural realities that are at play in the native lands that you're speaking of all function with their own principles and their own kind of like customs. So learning the culture per se will really mean learning how to fit in the land itself. So it's never a bad thing for anyone to learn how to fit in the land that they are. Naturally, if I travel to Poland, I'm going to have to learn to adjust myself and fit into the natural realities of Poland. I'm going to have to learn to fit into the culture of the people of Poland. So it's always good to learn how to fit into that land and the people and the culture, so you don't make yourself like a oddball out, or you make yourself seem like a threat, which is like, I guess, where the real concept of a terrorist really comes from. Somebody who terrorist, somebody who doesn't really fit into the territorial place that they're fitting into.
Yeah, I mean, I read the question again specifically because the way you pose is kind of general, right? We're not learning any of this as some kind of like ideology that's different or separate from us. So when you're talking about like indigenous ways and go back, indigenous ways meaning getting to the root of ourselves. And that's what really makes it relevant to you. Now, if you're talking about going to Merita, if we're talking about Merita, the big like value that presents is because there's people there that did preserve what we all lost or our families all lost. And that serves as a big bridge, because you can go back to the roots and then find your way to all the branches that all of us kind of represent. So that exists as a bridge, but it's really a bridge back to yourself. So if you're talking about indigenous ways, it means, okay, what did your ancestors do before, right? What kind of powers of nature were they really connected to in the lands that you're from? How did they take care of those things? What did they really follow? What did they live their life based on? That's what you really need to know to have it actually be useful to you, because it's never going to be like a kind of like a blanket thing or something that's generalized. It's kind of special and unique, to each person, to each bloodline, all of that. But there's steps in order to kind of reclaim all of that. And that means, going back to, again, utilize the bridge and see how you can even really set yourself up to now go on the process of learning those things and learning about yourself. And the really amazing part about this culture is that, when we're in a materialistic culture, you're limited to the material. But the history that a lot of us have lost touch with, and a lot of that, and if we're talking about the non-material aspect, that's not something that just, dies when a person dies. Meaning, if you really become someone that can now, set yourself up to be learning even from the non-material, then there's a lot you can gain back, and there's a lot of learning that you can kind of experience on that level that can take you back to where you're really from. But it's a step-by-step process.
And on that note, I'm not going to add anything to that because I think you guys covered it pretty well. Is there a point in having a Kemetic embassy in a country that's like not receiving of Chem society? You know how other countries' embassies work for diplomatic relations with the countries? What do you think a temple is? Technically, we're kind of like an embassy because we're not exactly welcome, but we're here, and we're doing what we can.
I would also say it's because I noticed and it's not you, Matthew. I'm not coming at you individually, but I noticed people kind of have this way of still trying to make this fit the colonial structure in a way.
Yeah, but you can't think that people are gonna think about it any other way, bro.
That's the only way.
That's the only way they're gonna think about it. Yeah. Everyone's always gonna be thinking about this in whatever way that they're used to thinking about things. So before you even try, you
got a point.
That's what they're used to, man. You can't expect anything else, man. All right, so then the next...
Your impersonations never stop.
What? That's Terrence Howard. What up, man? You guys remember when Terrence Howard was everyone was doing impersonations of Terrence Howard, and then he adds "man" to everything. I'm just trying to get home, man. Whatever. Tough crowd. Anyway, question again from Matthew Ruta. Or is having a Kemetic embassy in a place more for the spirits and bloodlines that are there as an aid in a foreign land? It's for what you mentioned and other things too, for lack of a better term, for what you mentioned and a lot of other things.
That's funny.
Matthew Ruta again, he's saying, is there spiritual consequences for relocating or traveling to another place? When you move in the physical, does it do anything in the spiritual? And if so, what does that look like? Teryshaat wants to answer this.
That's a good question.
I could see by the way she was like. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, okay, you're talking about if the physical is gonna affect the spiritual, right? But do you think you could even move to a different place on Earth without that already sort of being in the calculation that the Earth holds? Or something is already playing out for you to be able to displace yourself from one place to another?
Oh, snap. Teryshaat out here stunting on you.
That's just the first, that's like the first level, to that question.
Next question is, because Teryshaat's leaving you with a question to your question. Next question, sorry. How would the letter from the prophet apply to this? To be human means to have discipline, and to have discipline implies that one day you will be able to leave your own crib and avoid being a stagnant spirit. You're going to have to clarify that question for us, Matthew, because I don't know I don't know what you're referring to, the letter from the prophet. Should we go back to our native lands? Poland is too cold. Can we come to Merita? Yes, you can come to Merita. And on that note, a word from our sponsor before we get into rapid fire. Teryshaat, if you will.
Okay. Sauce Hot Sauce began in 2007 when a small group of students traveling in West Africa were trying to think of ways to support charitable projects. One of the students traveling happened to be an artisanal hot sauce chef.
Artisanal.
What?
You're
An
college educated. I'm not, and you're
hot
not even
sauce
pronouncing
chef.
it correctly.
It's debatable. And right there, diaspora.
It's English. It's English.
Yeah,
It's
but
English,
I'm
guys.
not even college educated. So for me to be like diaspora, like, yeah, I don't speak. I mean, I do speak English, but I'm not college educated.
You probably speak English. I mean, English
not
isn't
true.
my first language, so
Whatever.
all right.
Keep reading our sponsors.
And right there,
Spiel.
Sauce Hot Sauce was born. Since then, Sauce Hot Sauce has prided itself on making exceptional artisan hot sauces with high quality ingredients to support good causes. We continue to do this with the best and tastiest offering of sauce flavors to date, with the focus on supporting displaced families in the Fada and Gourma region of Burkina Faso with the revenue from our sales.
Get you some sauce, hot sauce, man. It's good for you, man.
Island Crown.
Island Crown.
We don't
Island
have
Crown
any
is
more,
really
do
good.
we?
No, I think we have some more.
We do.
Why is
We
it
do.
not
What
up
are you
here?
talking about?
Why is it not up here then?
Sauce, hot sauce.
Because we ate it.
Yeah, so without further ado, your favorite segment, rapid fire. Kenny Bashu, the floor is yours.
Is my mic on? It's on.
It's
Can I hear
on.
myself. Alrighty. First up, we're starting off hot. Do you hear me, people? Are you ready?
We're ready.
Metaverse sexual assault case under investigation.
I almost spit out my drink.
I asked you if you were ready and you said yes.
What?
Police officials in the United Kingdom have started an investigation of the first case of an alleged rape that took place in a virtual reality game as a 16-year-old girl faced a sexual attack in the online metaverse. The victim was left distraught after her avatar, which is her digital character, was gang raped by strangers online. Reported the New York Post. It was reported that the teenage girl was doing a virtual reality headset in an immersive game when a group of men allegedly raped her avatar. Although the girl did not sustain any physical injury, the teenager suffered a similar kind of psychological and emotional trauma as someone who gets raped in the real world, in quotations, said the investigating officers. This is believed to be the first case of virtual sexual offense, which is being investigated by the police. The investigation into the first of its kind case has prompted discussion around should police officials pursue virtual offenses, considering the fact that the police and prosecutors are currently facing a huge backlog of actual rape cases. Several incidents of virtual sex crimes have been reported in Horizon Worlds, which is a free VR game operated by Facebook's parent company, Meta. This kind of behavior, in quote, described has no place on our platform, which is why for all users, we have an automatic protection called Personal Boundary, which keeps people you don't know a few feet away from you, said a spokesperson from Meta.
So, hashtag me too. Hashtag not in my virtual space. Hashtag believe all women. Hashtag, first and foremost, I just have a very quick question, right? Is I thought these games only worked on what's like programmed into the game. So
Nah,
that means
bro.
like someone sat down and programmed the ability for you to rape someone else in the game.
It's supposed to be like real life.
Well,
Yeah.
first
Whatever
there
you
has
do
to
in
be
life,
humping
you can
has to
do
be
it there.
programmed before rape. So
Nah,
humping
it's-
was obviously programmed first.
You know what the sad
I
part
can't
is?
do this.
No,
The
but
first prototype for that VR stuff was actually a sex game.
What?
The first prototype for that VR stuff was a sex game.
How do you know?
Because I saw the commercial for it.
He was in the case study.
Exactly. I was in the case study.
I mean, no, but I saw the commercial for it. Like, so they put the head. The head
Your
thing.
son agrees.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
Your ancestors agree.
No. But anyway, seriously, on a serious note, this is kind of sick because literally the guy put the headset on, and it was like this fake lady, and he was just like really going at it, like for real, like just going at it. And this was like the first program for that virtual stuff. So
Yeah, but-
it kind of makes sense as to why you can do that in that kind of game, but at the same time, it's like, why would you do that in the game? Do you even feel anything?
No, but that's the thing.
No,
it's
you
literally,
can't feel it, bro.
It's literally
So
just.
it's mental then.
But that's literally just another extension of like porn. It's just a different extension of what kind of society we already live in. It's not that different. And then especially the way that now people are kind of.
What's not that different?
It's not that different.
It's not real.
Exactly.
Like, that's like people buying virtual real estate. I'm like, bruh, it doesn't exist.
But people are already so plugged in. Like it's normal now. Maybe not for us, but for a lot of people, that's part of their regular daily real life now. Is the virtual world.
To put on my headset and go in my virtual world and have virtual sex and buy fake properties that I can't go buy in real life with fake money.
Yes.
I can't do this.
Like we wouldn't know.
Bro, I don't know what to.
I don't know what to say.
This shit crazy.
I don't know what to say.
This shit
It's not
crazy.
surprising to
Don't
me.
go on virtual
This
reality.
shit crazy.
Yeah.
The only thing I was laughing
not
while I
that
was
crazy.
reading. I was like, I'm terrible. But I'm like, why shouldn't you just take the shit off?
Yeah, why don't you just sign off? Sign off. Yeah, like leave.
Wow.
Yeah, but the problem is that I can't. Next. Yo, I can't do this.
Next up, slowing it down just a bit. Rapper Cameron denounces African roots to claim blackness. Cameron has
Doesn't even make
revealed
sense.
that he identifies as black and prefers not to be labeled as an African American due to the seeming chasm in relations between black Americans and Native Africans. On the season 3 premiere of his It Is What It Is sports talk show, the Harlem rep shared his personal stance on racial identity and why he chooses to refer to himself as a black man. In quote, he says, "I'd rather fill in black than African American on ID forms because Africans don't even fuck with us," Cameron said at
But
one
you-
point during the episode,
But you
which
can't even
was released
separate
on
it.
Friday. When you go over there to Africa, he says, they call us Yankees. He then clarified his statement, pointing out that
That's true.
many Africans accept black Americans, but that they often point out the difference in their nationality and origin. They fuck with us, but we're not from the motherland. We're from America. So I'd rather say I'm a black American.
It doesn't even make sense what he said because if you like look at the job things, like it's black / African American. Like you can't even separate the two things. And like legally on a just legally speaking, the term black is now labeled as being of African descent. Like you can't separate the two. So mentally it's like a mental mind fuck. So it doesn't even make sense what he's saying. But you know, whatever.
But practically it already has been separated. The whole essence of the black identity is that separation.
Look, he's right. Look, Africans don't fuck with black people, and I don't blame them because at the
You
end of
can't
the
say
day,
all.
huh?
You can't say all Africans.
What Africans fuck with black people?
I mean, I know some Africans that fuck with black people.
No, I'm talking about what Africans do you know that are willing to claim other black people as African?
Personally, in my personal life, that I can think of right now, I would have to sit and think about it.
Exactly. You have to sit and think about it because it doesn't exist. You're not gonna find any Africans that say, "Hey, you know what? Like, yeah, that black person, that black American, is African."
But
It
you
doesn't
know,
work like that.
It's
bro.
a two-way street. You know, I say it's a two-way street because I remember meeting this when I used to work at this Japanese spot. We had this African guy who would come and like fix the vents and things, right? So he saw me and he saw my onk. Like that's how we triggered the whole conversation triggered it because of my little onk chain. And then he was like, "Oh, okay. Oh yeah, well you know about that?" I'm like, yeah. He's like, "Yeah, you know the pyramids and stuff. You know that was our people, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know." He's like, "Oh, you know?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah." And then we started talking. He's like, "Oh, where you from?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm Jamaican." Instantly, he's like, "Oh, you Jamaican?" He's like, "Oh man, I love you guys. I love you guys. You know why I love you guys? Cause you guys actually claim and represent your African roots, your African culture. But the niggas here, they don't do that shit. That's why we don't fuck with them." And he said it straight. I was like, so it's like a two-way street. Yeah. I think it's like it depends. Like if black people here actually were taking a different stance than Cameron, then you would see maybe some Africans like, "Oh, okay, yeah." But it would take a level of humility where like they would actually want to learn about their African roots. But most people don't. So then the stance is kind of like standoffish, and then they think Africans are ignorant because they think Africans don't want to include them. But it's not that they don't want to include you, it's just that you seem like you don't want to include you.
Well, I mean, even more so. Let's keep it real. If we're at the club, right, or we're trying to get in somewhere, and then you're acting a fool, and then you don't know how to act, you don't know how to carry yourself, and then they're asking like, "Hey, do you know this person?"
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't. Straight up. I'm gonna be like, "Nope." Because if the way you're acting becomes a reflection upon me and I have to claim your behavior as a reflection on me, hell no, I don't know you. Who the fuck is that? I've never seen that person before in my life. And that's the way Africans look at black people. Let's keep it real. Because black people look at Africans like, "Hey, why didn't you ever come and get us, and why do you have an attitude? Mm-hmm. And why are you out here now trying to sell us some watches?" And now why are you out here? Why are you out here trying to sell me on some bootleg stuff, right? But then Africans look at black people like, "Hey man, like I know where I'm coming from, and you know, like I know where my ancestors are from. So don't be mad at me because now I'm just coming trying to get a piece of the pie." Right? So let's keep it real. Africans and Caribbeans don't fuck with black people, really, and vice versa. Let's keep it real. So I mean, Cam's not wrong. He's true. I mean, he's right. But the interesting thing is the fact that Cam at the end of it said, "Shout out to all my niggas in Africa."
Exactly.
So I was like, wait, what?
Yep.
So, you know, hey, I'm not saying Cameron's wrong. He's right. Because, I mean, look, Africans don't claim black Americans. And black Americans have a lot of work to do in order to get to the point where they're able to say, "Hey, you know what? We're African." And it's not that that simple.
I just think it's interesting that it went from like being an identity crisis.
Yeah,
in his case, it's literally like, "I'm done with the crisis, and I'm fully taking this label. Like I'm fully owning this. I'm done with the crisis. I'm done struggling. I'm completely turning my back on all the like hardship that, you know, trying to get back to that identity would take. So let me just take this label that, you know, I have, and it's comfortable, and I know, and I'm gonna stick with that, and no more crisis for me." It's an interesting approach.
Look, Cameron has a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
He's famous. He's got a lot of access. So He's like, yeah, I ain't got nothing to lose. Yeah, Africans don't fuck with black people. Next.
All right. Off into the world of the discriminations. Plus size writer
Somebody says
insists
Senegal represent.
that fat women need
Chris
love
White
too.
the third.
In an article written by Megan De Maria on Yahoo News, she details her experience as a plus-size woman on the dating scene and the discrimination she faces. A quote from her article reads, "After ending a decade-long relationship, I created dating profiles on Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge in 2021. My first time using any of the apps.
Why are you
I
reading it like
expected to
this?
get messages. This is Megan's voice.
Yeah, it's sympathetic to Megan's
on.
cause. The fat bitch cause.
I expected to get messages from trolls telling me I was unhealthy or would never find a partner. But I hadn't expected so much attention from men who didn't want to date me publicly. Some men had profiles stating that they were physically interested in larger women. Others had profiles stating that they were looking for relationships,
Niggas put
only
that on
to
that
send
profile?
messages declaring the opposite for fat women, at least. Some would send messages about working to get in shape, and some saw physically being with a larger woman as a novelty, something they hadn't experienced before and
No one
wanted to
said
try.
No one said that.
In every case, it was about my body and not me as a person. She also somehow confidently writes, and I quote, "Fat women aren't outliers. They're the majority of American women, and there's nothing abnormal about finding them attractive."
Okay, so I don't think any of us are qualified to speak on this, aside from Kaja Zariman. Because as a skinny dude, like, as a dude that's like 125 pounds or less, I think that fat women are solely interested in men like you.
It's true.
So we'll leave this to you.
It's true. It's true.
Mute your mic, Teryshaat.
No, it's true. It's true. It's very true. I don't know what it is, but all my life, fat girls have always tried to bag me. I don't. Since middle school, it's
Speak
true.
on it.
It's true. It's true.
Tell us about it.
I remember one time I went to this party, and you know, I'm there. This one I used to smoke. So I'm there rolling in my spliff, butting my spliff, light my spliff, pop open my Guinness, drinking. And the music started playing. I started dancing. You know, drawing the crowd in. And it's two fat girls. Man.
They're like, look at that Kit Kat.
Look. The way they started coming at me like I was a piece of candy, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
Kit Kat bar?
Like one of them even came and whispered in my ear. She's like, "Yeah, I want you. I love the way you dance. You're probably really good in bed."
And what
I'm
did you
looking at
say?
her. I'm like, I just moved away. I'm like, look. I understand the skinny fat girl thing, but I'm not one of the skinny guys that
I
actually
mean the
likes
skinny
fat
guy,
girls.
fat girl thing.
Yeah. I'm not one of the skinny guys that actually likes the fat girls. I will dance with you guys in the party because that's what I used to do. I used to like pick them up and like throw them around and stuff and like flip on them and jump off the speaker box and all that.
The fat women?
Yeah, I used to do all that on the fat women.
How were you flipping a fat lady?
So here's the thing. It was me.
Walk me through this
Shout out,
process.
yo, Blocker, if you ever watching this, you probably not. Shout out to Blocker. So me and my bro Blocker, right? We used to do push-ups and sit-ups and pull-ups.
Okay, how
Like-
fat? To quote R. Kelly, how
I'll
fat
show you a
is we
picture.
talking?
I'll show you a picture. I mean fat. I mean fat. At least
How fat?
200 pounds or most. Fat.
That's not fat, bro.
That's fat. Have you ever seen a 200 pound?
Yeah, but how
5
tall?
foot,
How
5
tall?
foot lady?
5 foot? Okay, yeah, that's fat. Yeah,
That's fat and round.
Yeah.
200 to 250 pounds. That's
5
fat and
foot,
round.
200, yeah.
That's fat.
Yeah.
But yeah, me and him, we would have this competition thing where we would go out to the parties, and then we would find the fattest girl in the club. Also, shout out to Fat Bitch. You know who you are? That's her name. Her name is Fat Bitch.
Oh,
Kid you
like,
not.
damn.
I'll show you a video of her dancing one
No,
of
it's
these
okay.
days.
It's okay. I'll be fine.
It's
Relax.
hilarious.
Yeah.
But shout out to Fat Bitch. So we would go to these clubs, and then we would find the fattest of the fattest of the fattest, and we would have a competition like, yo, you think you could pick her up tonight? I'm like, yeah. You think you could pick her up tonight? He's like, yeah. And then we would see who can do it the most. the longest and do the most. That was like our little competition between the two skinny guys in the
So-
Okay, so
It's fair to say you're fetishizing each other.
exactly, you're fetishizing fat women,
There we
and
go.
fat women fetishize skinny men. Because I'm not skinny. I'm not skinny. Technically, I'm considered like
Nah, you're a pretty big guy.
by the BMI, by the fat percentage thing. I'm considered overweight. Like I'm not.
I
Considered,
wouldn't say you're overweight.
I'm not fat, but I'm considered overweight.
I wouldn't
What?
say overweight, but you're pretty big.
I know I'm big, but I'm saying like fat women don't go for me.
What is this?
Yeah, they.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I don't know. Is
Yeah,
this news?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. All I'm saying is I don't know what it is, but fat women like skinny guys.
Yeah,
I don't
fat
know.
women do like skinny
I
guys.
don't know what
Yeah,
it is.
sorry, fat lady. I'm sorry that dudes fetishize you, but yeah, you're fat. Lose some weight. Next.
Migrants. Loads of migrants dropped off at New York schools causing outrage. So, where is my research? Elon Musk actually went to the net and warned that the government will come for your homes, in quotes, after they run out of hotels and schools to commandeer for illegal alien housing. On Tuesday, around 2,000 illegal aliens were bused to a high school in New York City, and students and staff were ordered to switch to remote learning for the time being so that the immigrants could sleep in the gym. The illegal immigrants have been staying at a controversial tent city at Floyd Bennett Field in Brooklyn, but city officials decided they should be evacuated to nearby James Madison High School amid heavy rains and potential flooding. Buses are now pulling up to a school in Brooklyn and dropping off illegals. School is closed tomorrow because illegals will be sleeping in the school's gym. Someone says, "This is disgraceful," and New York is prioritizing illegals over Americans. What do you all think?
Isn't
I mean, we
Elon
already
Musk
spoke
an
about
immigrant?
this.
Isn't Elon Musk an immigrant?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's from South Africa. He's even an immigrant wherever he claims
He's an immigrant
to be
in
from.
the.
He's an immigrant
He's
where he
claiming to be
claims to
from.
be from. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, because he's a white South African.
Okay, that says a lot.
Yeah, so
Right.
I mean, the interesting thing about all of this is like, how do people think these migrants or so-called migrants or so-called illegal aliens, and I don't like calling people illegal aliens, but how do they think these people found themselves in the situation they found themselves in to begin with? Because what I find, we really don't need any proof of you dancing with fat women. But thank you for proving it to us. Katja's Rubin literally took time to go pull up photos of him from the club dancing with fat women.
We've seen
I don't know how you had that ready to go, but you had
Yeah,
it.
that was too fast.
Yeah, that was way too fast. Yeah, that was like, yeah, no, he was like, finally, someone finally gave me recognition. But the thing is that going back to what I was saying before Katja's Rubin showed me pictures of him dancing with fat women, is why do you think these people abandon their homes, abandon their lives, abandon their families, abandon their careers, abandon the things that they have, everything that they have going for them, to come here? It doesn't make sense. But you have to think about the fact that they're willing to do all of that. And why? And you have to think to yourself like, hey, you know what? Maybe there's something here that I'm even benefiting from, that other people think that they could benefit from, that they're willing to give up on all of those things and sacrifice all of those things to find themselves here in this land with me. So what I find dishonest is the fact that they're willing to overlook all of those things, because at the end of the day, everything comes with a price. So when you put gas in your car, where do you think it comes from?
Mm-hmm.
When you pay your electric bill, where do you think it comes from? When you go get your jewelry or your cell phones, where do you think those things come from?
Or your groceries.
Or your groceries.
Right.
Where does it come from? So miss me with the bullshit and get the fuck out of here. With the holier than thou position that you have a place to stand upon, perched upon, to look down upon the people that are here trying to build a better lives for themselves. I use better very loosely because we can't really call it a better life, but in their eyes, that's what has been sold to them as a better life. So let them chase a better life and let them get the same quality of living that they think you have, that they're trying to get for their descendants, that you're trying to secure and maintain for your descendants, and cut it out.
Next up, apartment residents boarded in by mysterious workers in Illinois. So in Harvey, Illinois, Rudolph Williams says he was home in his suburb when he realized that the doors and windows to his courtyard-style apartment have been boarded up with plywood, locking him inside. And quote, "I didn't know exactly what was going on," the 73-year-old said Monday in describing how he tried to open his blocked door. What the hell? His story, chronicled by his nephew on now viral videos, has generated a firestorm of criticism about rental conditions of the dilapidated low-income apartment complex in Harvey, Illinois. People are also debating who's to blame, and Mayor Christopher Clark has promised an investigation, which has not happened yet. It started that afternoon when crews without any logos on their clothing or vehicles started boarding up units. Residents say that they weren't warned and that the workers ignored other residents telling them that people were still inside. City officials say police were on the site earlier in the day and performed well-being checks, but not when units were set to be boarded up. The property owners say that the tenants' claims about residents being boarded inside are false, and the property managers say that the units were empty before they started boarding up units at the city's, I think they meant to say discretion. Genevieve Tyler, who said she was recently laid off from her meat factory job, was home when she heard noises outside and ran for a second door in her apartment, looking to escape because she thought it was a break-in. And that's when she said she came upon crews boarding up her windows.
Wow. Where is this?
Harvey, Illinois, just south of Chicago.
So they're boarding people in their houses?
Into their apartments.
Mm-hmm. Why?
I knew there was a reason why I hated
they're trying
Chicago.
They're trying to get those people to get out, right? Like
That's
they're
what it
trying to
seems
shut the
like.
whole thing down.
That's what it seems like. There's no explanation. It's like workers without no branded clothing. They're just there with wood and nail guns.
It's very sus. I can't even really make out what
Yeah, I mean, that sounds very scary. But yeah, don't move to Chicago. Next!
Ecuador is in a state of emergency after a high-profile prisoner breaks out. So, Ecuador declared a state of emergency Monday after a dangerous narco boss escaped from a maximum security detention center, and unrest broke out at several prisons in the violence-plagued country. President Daniel Noboa, in office since November, announced a 60-day mobilization of soldiers in Ecuador's streets and prisons as a manhunt was underway for the gangster Jose Adolfo Macias, going by the alias of Fito. There would be a curfew from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily, the president said. The state of emergency, Noboa said in a video on Instagram, would give members of the armed forces all the political and legal support they need to carry out their duties in battle against what he described as narco-terrorists. We will not negotiate with terrorists nor rest until we return peace to all Ecuadorians. On Sunday, the leader of the powerful Los Choneros gang was found missing by police conducting an inspection of a prison in part of the city of Guayaquil. The 44-year-old, who is said to have instilled terror in his fellow inmates, is believed to have escaped just hours before the police arrived, according to presidency spokesman Roberto. He was apparently tipped off. Masked gunmen then broke into a public television channel's TC Live studio during a broadcast, forcing staff to the floor. Police then made 13 arrests there following the attack, which injured 2 employees, and at least 10 people have been killed since the 60-day state of emergency began in Ecuador on Monday.
So let me echo some of the sentiments I've already said. Don't go to Ecuador either. Next.
It's real.
Don't go to Ecuador. If they can break out of the prisons and then take over the TV stations, don't go there. Okay, finished.
How many immigrants are coming from Ecuador? How many migrants?
How many of these illegal aliens are coming from Ecuador?
Next up, IRS is cracking down on mobile app payments. So users of Venmo, Cash App, and other payment apps will get a tax reprieve this year. The IRS announced Tuesday it will delay implementing new reporting requirements that were to take effect for the coming tax filing season. Originally, app users who made $600 or more selling goods and services would have been required to report those transactions to the IRS. A new threshold required by the American Rescue Plan passed in March 2021. Instead, payment apps and online marketplaces will send out separate tax forms called 1099-K documents for taxpayers who receive over $20,000 and make over 200 transactions selling goods or services using those platforms. For 2024, the basic reporting threshold will be increased from $600 to $5,000, the IRS said. So basically they're saying, like, we don't care how you make the money now. You got to tell me where it's coming from.
That's your domain.
That's my domain? What do you mean that's my domain? I'd say this. Start as many Cash App accounts you need to start so that you don't hit that threshold and then just keep moving from account to account. But you ain't hear it from me, though. Next!
The U.S. and the U.K. strike Yemen. And this is foreshadowing some power moves. So the U.S. Navy on Friday warned American-flagged vessels to steer clear of areas around Yemen in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden for the next 72 hours after the U.S. and Britain launched multiple airstrikes targeting Houthi rebels. The warning in a notice to shippers came as Yemen's Houthis vowed fierce retaliation for the U.S.-led strikes, further raising the prospect of a wider conflict in a region already beset by Israel's war in Gaza. U.S. military and White House officials said that they expected the Houthis to try to strike back, and President Joe Biden warned on Friday that the group could face further strikes. The U.S.-led bombardment, launched in response to a recent campaign of drone and missile attacks on commercial ships in the vital Red Sea, killed at least 5 people and wounded 6, said the Houthis said. The U.S. said the strikes in 2 waves took aim at targets in 28 different locations across Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. All of this really boils down to the Bab al-Mandab Strait, which is between Yemen, Djibouti, and Eritrea. So it's just a small strait of water in between the land between basically Yemen and Eritrea, where that route, being able to go through that strait, it cuts down on having to travel so much when you do import and export.
Yeah.
So that route to the Red Sea is like, it's priceless.
Yeah, don't go to Chicago. Don't go to Ecuador. Don't go to Yemen. Okay.
Great advice.
You're welcome.
I think that is foreshadowing though, because it's interesting that they're making a move in that region right now with everything else that's going on.
Mhm.
So definitely need to watch how that's gonna play out.
I mean, they're already setting the stage for it. So
So how are we gonna profit off of this? Is my question.
how
But the
are we gonna
interest-
profit?
The interesting
You know
thing
when
is
shit
how
like
are
this
they
pops
justifying it? How are they justifying it? Like, are they saying they're getting attacked or?
The Houthis, they are rebels.
Yeah. Do you know
in
who the
areas.
Houthis are?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. No one knows. That's the point. You don't know who they're bombing, but they're just telling you they're bombing that area. So
And the people are going to retaliate.
yeah, don't go there. Finished.
If you bomb someone, what do you think's
We
gonna?
expect them to retaliate.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's interesting because from what you said, it doesn't sound like they're trying to give any kind of like reason. Like, oh, they're threatening us like this, so we have to do it. You know, it seems like they're literally getting away with it in broad daylight because of the distraction that's happening with Israel and Gaza right now. So
Don't go to Gaza or Israel either.
Perfect sense to me. That's all Kenny Basha's got from behind the camera.
Well, guys, we always appreciate you guys for tuning in. We always appreciate being on the line with you guys, and we hope the fast is holding steady for you guys that are fasting. And for those of you that don't know, we have a bunch of different live streams that are happening every night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please check out those live streams. And, we'll be back with you guys next week. And, we appreciate you guys for tuning in, and we hope you guys continue to tune in. And we'll be back with you. And, it's always a pleasure, and it's always great to be here with you guys. So we'll see you guys next time.
good night.
Idiru.
So fancy.
Maaheqwur.